Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mormon Meat Locker. I am your host, Cable the Party Jenkins, and I have my co-host, Caroline Kingsley, on with us. How are you doing today, Caroline?
I am pretty good. I have a cold, so my voice is gonna be a little gravelly, or we can say husky. Uh, so I'll try not to cough too much. Oh, and there goes my low power. Uh-oh, there I am. Okay, we can't lose me or we'll have no podcast. We'll try to do this before my power runs out. So, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, all you mothers out there. We wanted to do something special for Mother's Day. Well, I guess nothing special per se, but we wanted to talk about mothers and how it relates to singlehood and on both sides of it, those who are single mothers and, of course, those who date them. So I will kind of give my perspective on what it's like to be a single mom and my experience, and Cable can maybe share some things on his perspective. So I was thinking about some of my disappointments, some of my joys, some of my surprises as a single mom, and in life, and kind of thinking back to when I was little. I always had this really strong testimony, and I not perfect, but my testimony has always been really great. And when my whole family pretty much fell away from the church, it was really difficult. And I was going to church alone from the time I was about 12 years old, and I would be surrounded by all these seemingly happy families. Of course, we know that there's all sorts of issues that go on behind closed doors, but I would always sit alone in church and surrounded by all these families, and I would think forward to the day that, like, well, one day I'm going to have my husband with me, I'm going to have my children with me, I'm going to have the priesthood in my home. You go to church every Sunday and hear about eternal families and the priesthood, and I didn't have those things. And I thought, one day I'm going to have those things. And fast forward through my marriage to today, and I'm back in church alone, sitting surrounded by all these happy families. And every other weekend I do have my children and I'm with them, but I'm still surrounded by these families and the spouses, and it's been this huge disappointment. It's been one of my biggest disappointments, is to not have that sort of little weird dream for a 13-year-old. Um, and I, and I go to the singles ward every other week when I don't have my children, and that really helps me because then I don't feel so alone. I feel like there's all these other people in the same position, but it's still, and the weeks I have my kids with me, you still feel that missing presence there. And I think as a single mom, that's been one of my biggest challenges. Plus, you're trying to wrangle, for me, these three little children. They're fighting, they're laying down and trying to sleep in the middle of sacrament, and they're bored and they're talking, um, and it's hard. You wish you had help. So that was one of my biggest challenges. Another is that idea, and I think I've probably said it before, is that you have this idea of when you're younger, that you go to church every Sunday, you go to all your meetings, you're reading scriptures every day. You're not just reading, you're highlighting, and you're marking in the margins, and you're praying, and you feel the gospel, and you know that one day you're gonna marry, and you're gonna live happily ever after, because you have all these blessings that are predicated on all the things you do, right? So it's supposed to work that way. And then everything falls apart in your marriage, or for some people, you don't end up having that marriage in the temple. And so it as Cable points himself, it took me a second to figure it out. My slow brain right now. Yeah. And so things just don't end up going the way that you thought. And I think there's a sense of control that you have. You do this and this ABC, and things will go the way that you thought they would. And you realize at this point in life that you have so much less control over your life than you thought. And that was the other big disappointment for me as a single mom. And I always thought that I would be a stay-at-home mom. I would take care of my kids. I thought, I never want to put them into daycare. I don't want someone else to raise my kids. I want to be there. I want to do all these fun projects with them. And I used to do these great things. And I used to have these we would celebrate different people's birthdays. Helen Keller birthday, I blindfolded my children and made them eat breakfast without being able to see. And for Frank Lloyd Wright's birthday, we designed our dream houses and our dream tree houses, and we had so much fun. And that was kind of my ideal. And now I'm just, I had to put my youngest in preschool. I ended up having to take a full-time job after I divorced, and so I had to start off in a new community, brand new job, was working very low wages for long hours at a newspaper. And I'm not doing all the fun activities I used to do with my kids. We still go out and have fun. We plan on going to Zion's later this month. But that was really hard as a mom to have to go back into the workforce, and have to do things alone, be both mom and dad at home. But what I was surprised about was when I got divorced, I imagined, and Cable, you have to tell me, is it the oh no, I'm trying to remember the movie where the Holy Grail, Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail, I think, where he's gonna walk across this chasm and he doesn't know if the path is gonna be there. He just has to trust it. Is that, or the Temple of Doom?
I
Holy
believe
Grail.
it's the Holy Grail.
And go with the Holy Grail. And so he puts some dirt across it and it reveals part of the path, but he just has to trust the path is there. And that's how I felt like divorce was. It's just, you just gotta like step out and hope you don't fall to your doom. And you just know it's the least of the worst possible outcomes. And so I stepped out and I didn't fall. I landed. There was a path there, and I still have no idea where it's going, but I was really surprised that I actually survived, and and that I found the single scene. It took me, I think, a year or two, but I was really surprised the kind of friendships I found and the community I found here, and not just friendships, but the family. Like, you guys have become family to me in a way that I never understood was possible. And uh, I'm at 10%. So we're going to be somewhat limited by our time because I don't have my power cord in here. Um, but I was really surprised. And that has been like my joy, is that I am so glad I have these friendships. And I'm sad that it took a divorce to get there. But I can't even imagine my life without the friendships I have. And I can't imagine my life without the joys I have. Something I've really learned is, and I'll try to go faster now, is that I thought I'd have my happily ever after. But I've learned that it's about now. It's not about one day. One day I'll be happy. One day I'll have this. It's like right now I can have all that. I can have my joy right now. And it's not about life not having challenges, which I think in some weird way I was thinking if I do A, B, and C, my life will be kind of cushy. It will turn out like I thought. We're going to have challenges. We're going to be pushed to our brink all the time. But amidst that, we can have joy at the same time, and we can be learning and living. And like I've said before, I think our lives right now aren't between where we were and where we're going to be. Like right now is a rich time, and our kids are learning. It's so hard for me not to give them everything that I want them to have, and that they don't have all the opportunities to do gymnastics and karate and everything, and have all the clothes that they'd be beautiful in. But I've learned that we have such a rich life as it is, and that they're watching me also living a life that's rich and learning new things myself. I'm not just expecting them to, do violin recitals in front of everyone when I'm not willing to go out and do things. So I'm now like willing to go out and learn and start new hobbies all the time, and they get to see that. And I think it inspires them to also work hard and learn new things and kind of be brave themselves. And so those have been my joys, and kind of finding the richness. And I'm glad that I have the depth that I wouldn't have had if things had gone the way I wanted them to. Not to say, God, that I want all of the challenges thrown at me, but I can't say I'm not happy for the ones that have been, because I know that I'm a richer person for it. So that's kind of my monologue as a single mom. And I think the other thing was, I had some naysayers when I was going through the divorce. Like, how are you going to date? You have 3 kids. Like, who's going to want to date you with 3 kids? And I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about it at the time, because I didn't care about dating when I was going through divorce. It's the last thing I wanted, to jump into something else. But I've been really pleasantly surprised about how it really doesn't matter at all. I mean, people have just been, when we've gotten to that point, have embraced my children. Usually they have their own children. If they don't, they're usually, want children, and they've been great uncles, and so they're great with kids. And it's never been an issue. The few times it has been like through the online dating stuff, and you just don't hear from them again when you tell them, but I didn't want them anyway. And so that's been my experience. And I don't know, for yours experience, Cable, um, does it factor into you if a woman has kids or not when you're looking at people to date?
It doesn't really like, I mean, it doesn't. I think we're all at a place in our life where there's a lot of things that go into dating and choosing who you want to date and things like that. So the factor somewhat to some
I'm
degree.
going to take you with me as I get my powers.
Okay. To some degree it does. To me, and everybody's different. There's I have all these friends who I think for most people, occasionally, like if someone has a lot of kids, like 7 kids, then that's hard because that's a big burden to take on. But
Right.
it, 2 or 3 or even 4, it that doesn't really become the factor. In talking to people, the bigger thing that I've seen is that becomes more of a factor is having future kids. Like if they already have kids, that's fine. That's part of it. It makes things harder often,
Sure.
but that's just part of the deal, right? It's not like someone's just you're not really just dating Caroline. You're dating Caroline and 3 kids.
Right.
So even though the beginning part of the dating, you're not really going to spend a lot of time with those kids, but that's part of the package deal. You're never going to separate a mother and her children. That's just
Sure.
not going to happen. So
Sure.
for me, it's not really about if she has kids. It's about if she wants to have more kids or have kids, just have kids if she
Together.
doesn't have them. So,
With
and
you.
then, but I also have a lot of friends who already have kids who don't necessarily want to have more kids.
Sure.
And then there's lots of people who could go either way. So I think that's the bigger thing. I mean, whether or not people have kids, for the most part, doesn't really play into it all that much. I mean, yeah, sometimes, but so many of the people that we hang out with now, they already have kids. And so if someone else has kids, great.
Right.
Now, it gives you more to think about because, now you got the 2 people who have to get along, which that's hard enough finding that in the first
Right.
place. But then this person has to get along with this person's kids, and this person has to get along with this person's kids, and all the kids have to get along. I mean, they don't have to, but
It'd
if
make life
it's,
easier if they did.
oh yeah, if it's causing that much tension, then, I have some friends who got married and they, between them, had 7 kids, and they had girls that were the same age. I think they were 11, and they did not get along. And,
Oh, that's
you know,
hard.
it was hard, but, and the rest of the kids were all fine. And it's not like it broke up their relationship or anything, but, it's just something that's hard to deal with, and you just have to deal with it. And, um, so there's things like that that come into play that can be tough.
It's something I think about when I'm dating. If a guy has kids, like I actually prefer it because I feel like, they get having kids, they know what my
Mhm.
life is like to some extent. And some of the people, a couple of the people I've dated that haven't had kids have been partying for the last 10 years and just have a very different lifestyle than I have right now. And it's not, we had trouble meshing it. However, I have dated some fantastic people without kids. And so it's definitely not a make or break, but it's something I do take into consideration for sure.
Well, in having the conversation about oftentimes about ages and different things like that, it's always been said, or I always say anyway, that it's important to find
It's
someone
always
who's
been
kind of
said by cable Jenkins.
It's important to find someone in a similar situation to you because those are the kinds of people that you're going to mesh with the best and have the best connection with.
Sure.
So, somebody who's for you, someone who's had kids, you know, um,
Right.
typically that's where you're going to find that. Now, I mean, me, I have 9, almost going on 10 nieces and nephews. I grew up when I was 15, my brother was born. So, I grew up changing diapers and doing things like that. So, for me, there's, even though I don't have kids, I understand them, you know, whereas there's some people out there who don't, who have never spent a lot of time around kids. So if they've never haven't spent much time around kids, don't have kids of their own, and then all of a sudden you throw them into a dating relationship type of situation where there's kids involved, they don't really know how to handle it. They don't know how to treat those kids. They don't know how to, you know, do things like that. And so then you find situations like that where it's hard. They don't get you.
Sure. And that's what I was thinking. I have one guy I dated was, an uncle and was really close to his nieces and nephews, and so he was fantastic around my kids. And like you said, it's a package deal. And then I don't think you can really get to know a mom or a dad, unless at some point you're around them with their kids, because it's a whole different side of them and a big side of them. And I think it's totally fair, to look for someone that still wants to have kids when you're in that place of wanting to have kids. And someone I was dating recently mentioned that they would like 3 more kids. And I thought, well, maybe, but let's be honest, I'm getting close to 40, and 3 more, it's a conversation we'll have. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know, 3, maybe 1, maybe there's a compromise in there.
Yeah.
But if it's a make or break, I think that's fair.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think it's important to see somebody with their kids because if you get married to someone, that's your day to day. That's your life.
Yep.
Being around the kids. It's not being at parties and being, dancing and stuff like that. That stuff's still gonna happen, but for the most part, your day to day life is gonna be spending time with the kids and getting homework done and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So seeing how somebody is in that situation is important. And for a lot of people, I mean, people who have kids, they know their discipline styles and all these other things, and just making sure that all of the stuff that goes into that meshes, that's important. Now, some people who don't have kids, there's certain aspects, even if they're comfortable around kids, that they just don't know. They don't know how
Right.
they're going to be. So it's hard to say, but you
And
know,
different discipline styles can be so hard. Different parenting styles. That's important to see how they discipline, how they treat their children, and how they interact with them. And
yep.
like you say, it's hard enough to find someone that you get along well with, that's you're compatible with, that you're connected with, and they feel the same way. That's the hard part. They have to feel the same way. And then
They
to
do.
throw kids in the mix, it certainly makes it complicated. Definitely doable, but well, we all hope one
So they
day.
say, but we're all still
So
here.
they say.
So
It's could be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I do want to read. Carol Ann had written something on the page that I thought was really good. Mother's Day is a hard day for some of us. I remember in past years resenting and crying with disappointment on the day many times. Disappointment of loss of a grandmother, a relationship with my own mother, feelings of not being appreciated by my husband and being a mother. Other years trying to have a brighter side of the day, focusing on my foster kids, being a temp mom while they're away from there, focusing on my 3 girls. Um, and they are my life and joy. Please, 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 single friends, be aware that you are great and find joy in the hard moments that we all go through as a single parent. You're of worth, you're talented and strong. Fathers, please help your children respect their mother by your example. Help them make or buy their mother something. All hurt feelings aside, children are half of you and half of her. Both beautiful. Celebrate. And I was thinking about that a little bit today. Mother's Day is a tricky thing when you're single, because especially if you have little children, and what do you do to celebrate? You're gonna make yourself dinner, or take all of you out to dinner, and then you're just spending your own money celebrating yourself. It's hard to celebrate, I think, as a single mom. And fortunately, my mom paid for me and the kids to go out today to have a nice brunch, and that's so nice. Because otherwise, it kind of ends up being one day like the rest, and it can be a little depressing, sort of like Valentine's Day, where it's just a reminder. Um, but I think that it's important to remember to celebrate all that we have. And like I said, like I used to do all these little random things with the kids, but now it's like we go on these adventures, and my single friends know my kids, and my kids love them and their kids, and we have all sorts of great adventures now, and life hasn't stopped at all. And um, looking forward to having that complicated relationship, dating, some with kids, or trying to figure all that out and put everything together. It's all we can do at this point.
Yep. Just keep looking for it. Hopefully, eventually you'll find
Anything else you want to add?
it. Good job out there, all you single mothers, and they're great. And dating is hard for everyone. And
And I think that that poll that I threw up there kind of showed too that it was kind of even along all of them. That I think a lot of people, we're all in this together. We're all feeling the same stuff, and
mhm.
keep it real, keeping honest about where we're at, because then we know we let other people in and let other people realize that we're in the same spot.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting comment because there are a lot of people out there who I don't know if they don't realize it or they're scared to let people in or whatever. Um, there's so many people that are in a similar situation that if we allow them into our lives, allow people to meet your kids and things like that. And it really does help and make things a lot easier. So, you know, you just got to let people in and let
Does
people help you.
Ginny? I hope she's saying her name. She put on her Facebook maybe a week or so ago that days where she felt like she wasn't for her kids, and I can't remember if it was stuff, or I was in the exact same spot. I give my kids the lessons. I can't even shoes. Sometimes when they need new shoes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how I'm gonna afford them, and I feel like like what am I good for if I can't do these things for my children? And she posted that, and her daughter had said something amazing to her, like how grateful she was that she was her mom, and how like a good job she was doing just out of the blue. And my daughter does the same thing for me. And it was such a good reminder that other people feel the same way I do and feel the same shortcomings, but really that's not what it's about. And I think we don't cut ourselves enough slack for what we are doing. We just focus so much on where we're lacking, and which might not even be lacking materialistic stuff. It's at the end of the day, it's the support we provide our children, it's the love, it's the experiences. But yeah,
Well,
like you're saying,
and I think far too often people just think that they're not, we're our own worst critics. So a lot of times, people say things about how they're lacking in this or that, and not always necessarily having to do with their kids, but other things. And what we need to realize is just that we're doing our best, and just because we think we're not doing a good job doesn't mean others agree with us. For me, it's like the experience of whenever I give a talk in church, I never think it's good, ever, because I don't know. I guess when you're giving the talk, you have a different perspective on it.
sure, sure.
But then inevitably, there's always people come up and say, "Hey, thanks, that was really good. I really enjoyed it. This, that, and the other." And it just shows you like we have a different perspective. And when other people see what we're doing, they see all the good. And that's what we kind of need to try to do is just to see the good stuff that is happening. I
And
mean,
we tend to see the
maybe,
negative for some reason. We would rather err on the side of negative than positive for some reason.
yep.
Just human
And I
nature.
mean,
We have to be kinder to ourselves.
yeah, you might not be getting your kids everything that they need, but you're there for them. You give them love and support. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
All the other stuff, I mean, having the nicest clothes and all that stuff, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family with 8 kids. We didn't exactly have everything we wanted. I mean, we had enough, but we also had family and spent a lot of time together. So, you know, we
Sure.
could have not gone to Magic Mountain as much and bought more shoes, but I'm
And see,
glad
I
we
kind of had
didn't.
the opposite where, well, we had 9 children. I had 8 brothers and sisters, but we weren't a really tight family. We've kind of got a little bit closer as adults, but we didn't have that closeness, and that's something that like I did long for. We did go to Magic Mountain a lot, but we didn't have that closeness. And between the two, that's far more important. And I'd rather give that to my kids.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories, I think, or close to, is a couple years ago. We were playing basketball with people one of my brothers works with. Well, two of my brothers were working at the same company, and we played a game, and there was five of us brothers that were on the same team, and it
Hmm.
was just it was fun. And
That is
so
cool.
um, those are the things that I think are a lot more important in life, and people need to give themselves credit for what they are doing.
There you go, mothers. Celebrate yourselves. Think today, if no other time, although it should be every day, think about today is a good day to reflect on everything that you're doing right.
Amen to that.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please, comments, questions, concerns, please, please post, and we'll probably see you in a couple weeks. I'm guessing, Cable.
Yeah, we'll look at the schedule and see. It's May gets a little busy with Huntington Beach Conference and Memorial Day, but we'll find a time and
We'll
plan
let you know.
another great episode.
All right. See you, Cable. See you guys.